Now, the head of the European Union's Borders Agency has resigned over allegations that the migrants have been mistreated. Fabrice Leggeri has been under mounting pressure to step down after a media investigation into Frontex found instances of so-called pushbacks, forcing migrants and would-be refugees away from EU borders before they can reach a country and claim asylum. Mr. Leggeri has previously denied wrongdoing. Well, Stefan Ludke is a journalist with the German magazine Der Spiegel. He was part of the international team of reporters that uncovered Frontex's illegal activities. Welcome to DW. Let's start with clarifying what we're talking about when we talk about pushbacks. What were Frontex agents doing?
Well, what is happening in the Aegean is that Frontex agents are detecting dinghies, refugee boats, in the Aegean and sometimes stopping them. And then afterwards, they would hand over the refugees to the Greek Coast Guard, who would actually commit the pushbacks. All of this is happening in Greek waters, and sometimes it's actually happening after the people have reached Greek islands as Samos or Lesbos.
OK, so just to be clear, so from what you've said, it sounds like this was Frontex giving these people to the Greeks and the Greeks doing the pushing back rather than the Frontex agents doing the pushing back.
Well, it's a whole system. It's a joint operation between the two of them. It is usually that Frontex is indeed detecting those kind of boats, sometimes stopping them, driving by. We've seen instances in which Frontex people were driving by in high speed next to rubber dinghies. But usually the Greek Coast Guard is doing the pushbacks. This actually means that they are abandoning those asylum seekers at sea in flimsy life rafts.
Right. And from what you could ascertain, was this Frontex going rogue and doing its own thing, or was what they were doing more of an expression of EU policy?
Well, I think mostly it has been done in the service of states. If you look at what was happening in the Frontex Management Board over all of those months after we have uncovered those pushbacks and Frontex's big role in it, you could see from the reports and the discussions within that they tried to cover those ups, to play it down. This to me showed that this was done at the service of states. Of course, it's not that one-dimensional. There are some EU member states that have a greater interest in harsher border policies, and some of them have been pushing for actually adhering to EU rights.
And so if these illegal actions were undertaken with the collusion of EU states, what difference will Mr. Leggeri's departure make?
Well, I think firstly, it's a mostly symbolic victory for all of those asylum seekers who went forward, who recorded what was happening to them in the Aegean. I also think that the new Frontex director will necessarily think twice before, well, committing pushbacks or aiding and abetting pushbacks ever again. So I think this is happening. And I think it's part of a broader European conversation that is happening and that played out in the Frontex Management Board as well. The real question here is what Frontex is supposed to do if the Greek Coast Guard is committing those illegal acts, those pushbacks. Are they there to aid and abet, or are they there to prevent and actually emphasize that this is not okay? This is the conversation that has been going on for the past month, and it has, well, come to an end today with the resignation of Fabrice Leggeri, but of course it will go on as well.
And what of those countries who you say were colluding? OK, so Mr. Leggeri has gone, but as you say, there were all these states who were saying, no, send them back, and acting illegally. What happens to them? Well,
I think that in the future you will probably see a change of policy after the elections in France. Right now, you've seen already that Macron was actually not ready to let Frenchman Fabrice Leggeri go. You've seen right now, after the victory of the Social Democrats in Germany, that there is a real change in policy and a momentum here. So the real question to me is, what will happen in the Frontex Management Board, because they can really steer the new director of Frontex and steer the agency in a direction that they would want to.
Understood. Thank you so much for joining us. Stefan Ludke, investigative journalist with German news magazine Der Spiegel.